Thank you so much for joining me today. First, I would like to acknowledge Professor Bill, Dr. Kaufman, Kaili. Thank you for being on my committee and for being inspirations to me and supporting me throughout this thesis project. My thesis is titled Site-Specific Sculptural Green Wall Systems as Artistic Activism, Promoting a Sense of Place and Well-Being in Hawaii. So why this topic? Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, as many of you know, Western foreign greed and lack of social responsibility caused the widespread degradation of the environment and culture of Hawaii's native people. The lack of understanding of the remote archipelago's rich history dependent upon its abundance of natural resources caused the exploitation and degradation of the land. Architectural design became a reflection of the homogenization of culture, worldview, religion, and way of life. Based on research, this thesis proposes that green walls can be a way to mitigate widespread, placelessly designed architecture rooted in egotistic pursuits, self-interest, and government corruption. The main gap that this research bridges is the gap between the theory of topophilia, which means love for a place, developed by human geographer Yi-Fu Tuan, and how it can be applied to design to make it more site-specific. A few questions that this research will answer are, can plants be used architecturally as a green wall to create a narrative, an artistically designed narrative not of one person or one specific culture, but a collective that shaped the present environment? Can this narrative create a sense of place within placelessly designed architecture? Can green walls promote a sense of well-being? I wanted to visually represent my methodology in a clear, understandable, simple way. I chose to metaphorically compare it to a plant. Next, I will present the theoretical research portion of this thesis. Biophilic design is a popular design theory that inspires the incorporation of nature into the built environment. Basically, biophilia is described as the connections that human beings subconsciously seek with the rest of life. Green walls are essentially biophilic. As previously discussed, human geographer Yi-Fu Tuan's concept and literature on topophilia looks at what connects mankind to the physical environment. Intrinsically, how man's worldviews, perceptions, attitudes, and values of the physical surrounding shape the environment. This section explores how Tuan's findings can be applied to designing spaces with a greater sense of place. As a whole, on a large scale, it will provide foundational information on the importance of place-based design. Green walls are like a canvas and created much like a piece of art in which a medium is selected, aesthetic qualities are reviewed, and often a message is conveyed. Green wall creation can be compared to land art, as it has been a vehicle for conveying messages more powerfully than written or verbal expression alone. This section examines how humans have found ways to integrate plants with the built environment throughout history. This section will examine the history of green walls in the Western world. It provides foundational information on the development of green wall technology throughout ancient history and its relevance in modern-day society. Plants and architecture in the modern Western world. The fascination with incorporating plants into the built environment has been popular in Europe and the United States throughout time. Evidence of this can be found in popular traditions, art movements, or schools of thought, as seen in the examples. This research sought to analyze Hawaii based on its cultural and historical agricultural context. Examining the importance of plants in the history of Hawaii allows us to recognize the deep-seated cultural relationships between Hawaii's people and plants. The realistic technical aspects of green walls will be researched in this section. These are the main types of green walls, and their numerous benefits are shown in the table, ranging from health benefits to food production to pollution control. This thesis goes into detail about green facade description and requirements, and the various types of green facades, which usually support climbing vines. I also looked into living walls and their requirements. These systems can support a variety of plant species, however, require more maintenance and are more expensive to install, among other differences. The historical and contextual site analysis of the chosen site, University of Hawaii at Manoa Architecture Building. This part of the research recognized and investigated major events throughout Hawaii's history and analyzed how those events have shaped the physical environment and cultural setting of modern Manoa. So this site was chosen by my chairperson and interim dean, Professor Bill. This section looks at the context of the building and the history of the quadrangle. It also critiques its undesirable, placelessly designed features. The principles were developed based on theoretical research and research on current green wall technologies. So the first principle, based on the theory of topophilia, states that the design of a green wall should appeal to the senses, vision, touch, auditory, smell, and taste as much as possible. And implementation, a variety of plants were chosen for the design of the green wall. The plants vary in color, smell, and texture. Some of the plants can even appeal to touch and taste, and they can be prepared as food or tea. Principle number 2, the culture and native people of a place should be researched before designing a green wall. Implementation, during this design process, consultation with cultural and historical experts was essential to determine the best design for this proposal. Throughout the research and design, Hawaiian cultural experts were consulted, historians, native Hawaiian plant experts, a navigator, and an artist were valuable sources of inspiration and knowledge. The consultation portion of this research was not formally documented and was difficult to quantify. However, the knowledge that experts shared with me guided and directed the design decisions. Principle number 3. Often the gender or age groups can affect the perception of the environment. Identify the groups of people that the green wall will be designed for. Implementation. The green wall was designed for the user group of primarily adult students, faculty, and staff of different genders. The purpose of the design is to provide aesthetic visual respite to appeal to the senses and provide a sense of place to this user group. Principle number 4, identify navigational patterns in the space to assist in wayfinding and to appropriately accent the building with plants. Implementation, the main pedestrian pathways have been chosen for the design of green walls. Also, the courtyard wall immediately parallel to the stairway was chosen for the design of a green wall, as it is the foremost view when one enters the building. Principle number 5, identify cultural attitudes toward the landscape. Implementation, the historical research of the site and the site analysis informed the design decisions. The indigenous people of this place had a profoundly symbiotic, mutualistic relationship with nature, the land, and plants. The affection and attachments toward the land informed the decision to take artistic inspiration from its natural forms. Principle number 6, research the art, architecture, literature, and the manipulation of the environment throughout the history of the place, as it often reveals cultural ideals and values. Implementation, Hawaiian lore, known as mo'olelo, often describes the land and its features. The Manoa Heritage Center shared the mo'olelo that describes some of the natural features of Manoa, revealing the cultural importance that the land holds. The design was inspired by these stories. The plant selection for these design green wall systems reveal an even greater connection between the land people, native plant species, and the architecture building. Principle number 7, understand that space and land are complex mediums that have been shaped by human society's technology and politics. All built structures are not designed without political or ideological neutrality. Implementation, the site analysis section provides background on the intention of the building's design. Although the political or ideological design intentions are not clear, It is known that the architecture was based primarily on the intent of one person without the consultation of the user group or other architects. Based on the concept of land art, principle number 8, land art, or the manipulation of the land, can challenge the accepted norms of society, such as expose issues of war, globalization, urbanization, and the exploitation of user groups of people. Site-specific sculptural green walls are essentially land art installations and have the potential to express these ideas. Implementation. Although this installation does not intend to reveal societal injustices, it does address place and is designed specifically for the site. The architecture building is often noted as lacking comfort or usability in its design, and it is hopeful that green wall systems will provide the benefits described in the theory of biophilic design. Principle number 9. In the context of this research, the investigatory mode and interruptive mode of land art apply to the intent of the design of a site-specific sculptural green wall. This means that it involves the investigation and research of the site manipulated, and it deliberately interrupts and physically changes the site. Implementation. The installation deliberately interrupts the site and provides a view of living species that have been established in Hawaii throughout Manoa's history. It also provides a place for the biodiversity of species to thrive. The green walls bring attention to the natural features of this place. Research of green wall technologies serve as foundational knowledge for the principles developed below. Principle number 1, the project scope and objectives need to be determined by the design team and owners. They must establish the design objectives and the desired benefits. The objectives will determine the type of green wall used. Implementation. The user group of the University of Hawaii Architecture Building has often cited the building as being poorly designed. The interim dean of the school came up with this idea to design a green wall to aesthetically accent the building. The specific goals and the desired objectives were left open-ended, which inspired the hypothesis. And the two types of systems chosen was a green screen system and living wall tray system. Principle number 2, the budget should account for not only the design and construction, but also the maintenance costs. Implementation, the project remains a concept, and the budget has not yet been established. However, the maintenance cost should always be evaluated before the physical actualization of a green wall project. Otherwise, the green wall will not sustain in the long term. Principle number 3, site analysis should account for the environmental conditions, climate, and existing architecture. Implementation, solar studies were done to assess the kind of plants that could survive in these conditions on the green walls. For the purposes of this research and in accordance with the conceptual design objectives, an analysis of the existing plumbing and structural elements of the building was not necessary. However, this analysis would need to be done for the design's physical constructability to be assessed. Principle number 4, the long-term success of the green wall is also dependent upon the plant species chosen. This plant selection should be based on the environmental conditions of the site. Likewise, the plant selection should be based on the design objectives. Implementation, the plant species were chosen based on their cultural significance and connection to the site and plant's ability to grow in the specific site's environmental conditions. Both the cultural, environmental factors, and survivability of the plants to the site were equally considered during the design of the green facade systems and the living wall systems. The plant locations were mapped in the diagrams. Also, accent plants to the green wall systems are species that were secondarily incorporated into the design around the site. The renderings reveal the design outcome. Both the green wall systems and the green wall system with the plantings are shown in these images. The research presented here will hopefully bring more considerable attention to the importance of place-based or site-specific design and inspire interest in green walls. Site-specific sculptural green walls reveal the artistic and versatile potential of green walls and a different perspective on this technology. Hopefully, in the future, others will feel encouraged to push the bounds of traditionally designed green infrastructure. Thank you so much for listening and take care.